Would you like to learn from those that are taking their lives, their businesses, and their passions to the next level? Best-selling author of Speakeasy and master connector Lou Diamond is here to connect you to some of the most inspiring and amazing people on this planet. Get ready to thrive loud with Lou Diamond.
Welcome, everyone, to another spectacular episode of Thrive Loud with Lou Diamond, connecting you to the most inspiring and amazing people that are thriving each and every day. I'm your host, Lou Diamond, and today on Thrive Loud, we have the Director of Program Development at Literacy Chicago. With a career spanning education, media, and brain training, she now leads literacy initiatives as the Director of Program Development at Literacy Chicago. Her new book, 33 Ways Not to Screw Up Teaching Adults to Read, love that title, very direct, reflects her dedication to literacy and her commitment to sharing valuable insights gained from her extensive experience. Thrive Loud listeners, I bring you Joanne Telser-Frere. Joanne, welcome to Thrive Loud.
Hello, and congratulations on saying my name correctly, the whole thing.
Listeners need to know that I needed her to say it first before I mimicked it. I'm not going to give myself the credit for that, Joanne. Come on now. But more notably, I had the pleasure through our mutual friend Rob Samuels to connect on his platform with you, and we started chatting. And fascinating work you are doing. I'd love for you to connect to the Thrive Loud community so you can share what you're doing. Here's what I love to do, Joanne. I kind of like to do a little bit of a rewind. We don't need to go all the way back to the beginning, but I would love to know how the work you're doing now kind of became your passion and your gig.
I'm so happy we don't have to go back to the beginning, Lou, because my life story, starting when I was 18, is pretty long and complicated. And I've lived in many countries. I lived in France, I lived in Egypt, I lived in Pakistan, and I lived in Doha, Qatar for 9 years. Through that whole time,
Amazing. I'm just nodding in amazement because Doha, you've been global to say the least. So keep going.
So all those years that I spent doing things in different countries kind of came together when I joined Literacy Chicago. Some of the things I did, so you can kind of see the big picture, is I learned to teach English. Everything I've done, I've taught myself to do because I didn't know what I wanted to do as a kid. All I wanted to do was grow up, go move to France and be French, which I accomplished. But once I got to France, I didn't know what to do with my life. And the only job I could find, because I had a BA, or BAS actually, from the University of Illinois, they thought I could teach because I spoke English. I didn't know anything about teaching, but I got a job teaching. And over the years, figured out not only how to teach, but how to train teachers. And I've always worked in the adult education world. Do you want me to keep going here?
Well, keep going. Yeah, I'm listening. So are our listeners.
Right. So my life took me first to France, where I taught adults for many years, and then started doing some training of other teachers. Then I met a guy, right? You always meet a guy or a gal or someone who changes your life. And he invited me to go with him to Pakistan, where he was being sent for a year. Okay. So I went with him, and I'm not the kind of person who can sit home and knit. I have to do something. I have to meet people, and I love conversations with people. So I started teaching English to the French community, and even some kids. I had all kinds of people. I taught also to a group of women from the Gulf, and it was a lot of fun. From there, we went back and forth, Pakistan, Egypt. Then we went to Egypt for 3.5 years, and I got to teach there. I did a lot of theater in a local troupe. But I learned a lot. I started writing a local newspaper. So I started learning all these other skills as I went. Then we went to Doha, Qatar, which is a little peninsula connected to Saudi Arabia, across from Dubai. And there I became a journalist. And I'm still teaching on the side, but I worked in radio and TV. I worked with the French radio first, so I was doing programs in French, a lot of interview programs, and I got to meet amazing people, from politicians to writers to dancers to any French person that came to Qatar, I interviewed. So that was a lot of fun. And since the French and the English radios were in the same building, I got hired to work on the English radio. And so I did a lot of interviews, both in French for the French side and then English for the English radio. I did children's programs. I visited schools. I just kept learning. My whole life is about learning. Everything I do, I've learned out of school.
So as someone who has learned and appreciated and grown in certain things, I find it fascinating, as you mentioned, that you started off, you did help people teach English at a younger age, and here you are still teaching people how to read. And I want to talk about this because I think it's important now to do a little stat check here. Help the listeners understand the significance of the literacy problem just here in the United States.
Okay, so I'm going to start by asking you a question.
Sure.
Well, when was the last time that you were somewhere where you couldn't find the answer to a question through the written word?
I would guess I was in a foreign country would be the thing. I would have to say maybe I was in Jordan. That was the only time I'd ever seen Arabic, and I didn't know that. So I would guess, not being able to read at that point, I needed to find someone that spoke English or something. That would be the closest.
And so let's take that experience, and if people are listening who speak Arabic, imagine that you're walking in Chinatown, or you're walking in New Delhi, or you're walking somewhere where you can't even read the letters. So if you're in a country that uses the same alphabet as ours, you can probably go on your phone and look up the translation. If you're in a country where you can't even recognize the letters, you are stuck. And in most countries, there are a few English words thrown in. So you might see a stop sign, you might see a word like sail. There's always a few words. You might see Coca-Cola. And interestingly enough, Coca-Cola you can recognize in almost any language. That's how good their marketing is. But for adults in America, and I'm not talking about foreign adults, I'm talking about American adults. This is their life every single day when they walk out of their house.
Yeah.
Think about it for a minute.
Do you have any stats or
I
numbers
do.
on this? So, yeah, I'd love to hear it.
So there's a couple of really good places to find stats. One is an organization called Pro Literacy, which is probably the biggest or one of the biggest international literacy organizations. Also the Barbara Bush Foundation. But so these facts are not things I made up.
Yeah.
Other people have done that work. The most recent count of Americans who cannot read past second to third grade is, sit down if you're not sitting down, please, 48 million people.
Wow. So if there's, let's just round up and say there's close to 400 million people in the United States. I know it's really like 300 something. We are talking more than 10% do not know how, are illiterate according to the way that schools would define that to be. Yes?
Right. Let's say they're not functionally literate, which means like you were in Jordan, or like you might be in Chinatown. There are a few words that are going to pop out at you for most people. It's an average, but the average is between second and third grade. And to make it more scary, 54% of all those of Americans can't read past sixth grade level.
Amazing. So with this, And by the way, we'll get to a plug section when we talk about what Literacy Chicago is, but I want to talk about specifically the next step, which is there's not being able to address their literacy issue. And then there's actually stepping up and wanting to face that issue, which I have to imagine is a very small percentage of those that have that. Maybe help understand like how many people come forward and how do we try to tap into this number and make this number smaller for those who are unable to read, even in our own country?
So I have a few ideas on how we could do that. Let me tell you some of the barriers, though, because a lot of people ask me, why can't people read? They go to school. They should be able to read. Some people go to school, some people don't. There are so many barriers to adult education, like poverty, crime, low level, poor health, learning disabilities. There are so many reasons that people can't get an education and can't learn to read that I could probably talk about that for half an hour. But I want to mention the fact that the people who do walk into our office, get up the courage to go above and beyond the stigma and the shame of not being able to read, can accomplish their dreams, because we do have methods and ways of working with adults, starting with empathy. So we have to be empathetic with them before they even do a reading assessment. We have to let them know they're not being judged.
Yeah.
So answering your question, how can we reach more people? This is the problem. Here where I work, we reach people, we've been around 58 years. And in full disclosure, I work for a nonprofit organization called Literacy Chicago. This is not about me. This is so much bigger than me. My passion is to find all those people who can't read and bring them in and tell them it's okay. We know your path didn't take you along a literacy road, but it's not too late. I don't care if you're 82 years old. One of our biggest success stories is an 82-year-old man who came in when he retired. He worked his whole life, retired and decided he was going to learn to read. That was, he's 82. He started at 65. He still comes to class every single day. His individual tutor is 92. So now he's asked me for help managing a cell phone. I'm trying to get him to buy a smartphone, and he wants to, but I have to get him a younger tutor to help him with that because she can't do it either.
Joanne, by the way, it sounds amazing to me, and I know that most of the listeners who listen to this program are a pretty well-educated group of individuals. Yet I'm going to go out there and say that I think a lot of the mediums that communicate with people that don't require you to read or to watch or to pick something up actually are starting to do this. Has the ability to have access to so much of the spoken word maybe added to the fact of people not taking the effort to improve their literacy, because I guess they can function or get around? I'd love to hear your take.
I think that people can make it. A lot of people who can't read are very smart, and they rely on their ears and their memory. A lot of our students have great memories. They can remember. They have to. They've really developed their auditory skills so that they can remember what bus to take. But I think that the main thing that stops people from coming and learning to read is not because they can function. Most people who can't read are ashamed of it, number one, and number two, they don't know where to go for help. And they're so ashamed that sometimes their family doesn't even know they can't read. They have learned to hide it. They have learned to get around it. And if you've ever been in a supermarket where somebody says to you, "Can you read me the ingredients on this can?" "I can't, I forgot my glasses." 9 times out of 10, that person can't read.
Wow. Amazing.
They didn't forget their glasses. They can't read it, and they need to know if there's sodium or if there's sugar. And it's very, very sad because they can't read the word sodium or any other word for salt or any word for sugar or glucose. And they make bad choices, and that's why they have bad health, because they can't read what's on the cans and they're eating things that are bad for them. But I have a dream about how to reach them.
I want to hear this. Share.
And this is how maybe listeners could help. So I have this dream. I'm not a good marketer, so I don't know how to put this together. But if we had a marketing plan that would reach people through the spoken word, not the written word. They can't pick up a newspaper and figure out, here's a class I'm going to go to. They can't read a flyer in the grocery store, but they do listen to the radio. And a lot of people have figured out how to go on and listen to TikTok or other forms of digital media. But that's new. That's only since COVID, and not everybody can do it. They do watch television. They listen to the radio. So if we were able to put together a nationwide, I'd just like to get an Illinois statewide campaign going. My big dream is nationwide. Having all the different organizations by state, by city, participate in a marketing event that says, we are here. We don't judge you. We don't care if you had problems in the past, because today's today and we can move forward together and we can help you. And there are methods. I have actually been working on a method with a group of people in Lucknow, India. And when I met them, I said, this is my luck now. I've been there. It's just I like to be silly. But my luck brought me to Lucknow to work with a group of brilliant people who have put together a way of teaching foundational reading and math, because